All right, so this is interesting to me. So more on H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells was one of my favorite authors as a kid. I thought his stuff was amazing. I love science fiction. I was like, oh, wow, H.G. Wells. Yeah, because my grandpa's really into his work, and he's like, you should read War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds, if you don't remember, was about an alien group of people. You know, you could say they're a different species. An alien group of people who essentially came from Mars to terraform the planet to suit their survival needs at the harm and extinction, or near extinction, you know, at the end of the book, of the native people of the planet. That sort of seems like it's an analogy for something. But even more damning is his book, The Time Machine. And The Time Machine is what I actually expect this future will look like. I don't remember if I got all this stuff. I just sort of skimmed through the book a bit when doing this research. And this book is even more New World propaganda than I had expected it to be. So, fruit, by the way, was... so this is describing his group of people. So in the future, there's two different races for humanity. And one of these people is the Eloi. So let's see how he describes the Eloi. Fruit, by the way, was all their diet. These people of the remote future... These people of the remote future were strict vegetarians. What do they want to promote? They want us to stop eating meat. They want to make us allergic to meat. They want to make us vegetarians. There's two reasons for this. One is a bit more esoteric, in which they believe the lower forms of life form that you eat, the basically more you'll be reduced into ashes and nothingness in the earth. Like if you're just eating minerals and bugs, you'll basically become minerals and bugs. You are a step above what you eat. But in reality, there is actual scientific proof to back that up. I mean, the reason why humans are carnivores, we are not even omnivores. We're actually supposed to be carnivores. But the reason that we're carnivores, and you can be a bit of an omnivore if you want. I actually think mainly you should eat meat, maybe some fruit. Sometimes fruit does give you good vitamins. And you should eat... some specific herbs, specifically herbs, with healing properties. They do actually have some healing properties, but vegetables are not meant to be consumed the way that we consume them now. A lot of vegetables have toxins in them, even naturally. So, this group of people, they're all vegetarians. They don't eat meat. So they're not getting the nutrition they need, making them weak. It even says here, communism, said I to myself. This is a reference to the society that the Eloi have in the future. Everything is communal. Nobody owns anything. They all just live without money or anything. They're just dumbed down. Then, in a flash, I perceived that all had the same form of costume, the same soft, hairless visage, and the same girlish rotundity of limb. It may seem strange, perhaps, that I have not noticed this before, but everything was so strange. Now I saw the fact plainly enough. In costume and in the differences of texture and bearing that now mark of the sexes from each other, these people of the future were alike, and the children seemed to my eyes to be the miniatures of their parents. So these people, the genders are just alike. There's hardly any difference between male and female. What else are they pushing on us? Partially for population control, and partially because if you actually understand this people, it fulfills some sort of weird esoteric occult belief that they have, which I argue, and we'll get into later, if you're watching this on YouTube and want to move over to the channel and learn more, we'll actually study how this is actually It goes back all the way to the conflict between the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnon. And we're going to go in between that study, and we're going to study ancient history and all of this stuff. But this goes way back. It's not just a modern day event. Even the idea of androgyny, it is not modern by any means. Then he says, where population is balanced and abundant, much childbearing becomes an evil rather than a blessing to the state. Where violence comes but rarely and offspring are secure, there is less necessity. Indeed, there is no necessity for an efficient family, and the specialization of the sexes with reference to their children's needs disappears. So what he's saying here is, in a future society, for the people and the state, no struggle actually means that the people have no purpose. So if you don't have a struggle, if there's nothing that you're trying to overcome in life or nothing you're trying to achieve, you have no purpose. Now, there's an interesting study that's come out, basically that some people from the Kellogg family did way back when, where they try to prove that nature doesn't exist, that everything is just nurture, and you can raise an ape up like a child. Well, the problem is the child realized that if he did the same things the ape did, he would get the same rewards that the ape did. So if he pointed at things rather than learning to communicate, everything was handed to him. What did this do? This decreased struggle and gave him no purpose to live. So this kid didn't learn to speak like a normal kid. This kid actually grew up with some mental defects because of this. If you don't use the intellect you have, you lose it. If you do not have a sense of struggle or desire to overcome something, you lose your purpose in life, and therefore you lose your life itself. Another study, the mouse utopia experiment. It was a bunch of mice, and whenever they started populating, it wasn't even because they were overpopulated, although that was part of it. It's really stressful being in a crowded city type situation with these mice. These mice actually had enough food to survive, and they killed themselves off because they were so well fed and they had no purpose in life that they lost all desire to reproduce. It's almost like this is planned. So, he says, the ideal of preventative medicine was attained. Diseases had been stamped out through preventive medicine. What is that? That's the stuff they put inside of you with the whole COVID panic. He also says, I saw mankind housed in splendid shelters, gloriously clothed, and as yet I had found them engaged in no toil. There were no signs of struggle, neither social nor economical struggle. So that's cultural Marxism. There's no difference between groups of people, no individuality, no nothing, no differences between anybody. It's almost like when you become so atomized and individual, you actually become less individual. It's almost like that's a thing. Like the more individualistic you try to be, like notice how the goths and the emos and all these other groups, these special snowflakes now, as a lot of people call them, they want to be the most individualistic people. So they come up with all these weird, stupid, obscure identities. Like some think they're clowns, some are furries, some think that they're cats. I don't know. They think that they're these dumb things, and yet they're exactly like everybody else, especially within those groups. Once you try to become so individualistic, once you atomize people to that degree, you actually are treating them the same because the more individualistic people are, the less identity they have. You're destroying their identity. That's all they're doing. Either way you go, it's the same effect. And now they have no economic struggle either. He's advocating communism and he's acting like it's a great thing. It was natural on that golden evening that I should jump at the idea of a social paradise. The difficulty of increasing population had been met. I guessed and population had ceased to increase. There we go. He's advocating population control even within his fiction. See, H.G. Wells was an effective propagandist. When he wrote these books, he wanted to promote certain things within the people. So the people who read these things, they're sort of dumb, and they thought that this was like a paradise. I mean, even as a kid, I actually thought this sounded horrendous, although I didn't realize how propaganda-y it was. I thought this sounded like a horrendous future, and I was like, wow, that actually sounds like where we're heading, especially with the ruling elite. And little did I know, the more I researched, that that was actually even more literal than I could have ever anticipated as a kid reading this book.